and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and today we are so pleased to be talking with Dr. Larry Johnson, who is the new president of the Guttman Community College, which is part of our CUNY family. Dr. Johnson, thanks so much for joining us on Black America and at CUNY.
Yes, thank you so much, Carol. I'm so delighted to be here.
Right. Well, you know, you are a part of this frenzy going on now with students going to school and parents dropping them off or getting them ready. I mean, there's a huge migration going on all across the country. Talk to us a little bit about what's happening at Guttman now. And you're right in Midtown on 40th Street in New York City, right? Which has got to have some glamour to it for students who are going there.
No, absolutely. You know, I believe we're grappling with the same return to campus as many institutions. But what is so great about our college is that we're such right now, a small knit college that we're able to kind of really navigate maybe a little differently, which is the pros and cons to that, and that our campus is not a large campus, but in working with our faculty and staff, our students are in a cohort model. And many of those students, we're working with them closely to ensure that we're able to bring them back to campus safely, which we have began to do so. But as we're working within our guidelines from CUNY to make sure that all our students are vaccinated, to make sure that they have the best learning experience possible in a safe learning environment. So I believe our students, they are excited to return to the hustle and bustle of being in the city, of being in Bryant Park. And I believe that is one of the added attractions that really has many of the students, even their various boroughs, coming to Guttman Community College.
Right. I have a young friend who attended Guttman and loved just the idea of being in the middle of the city of New York City and getting an education. One of the things that I love about your school is that it is a 2-year program, which I think for so many young people in this country, probably worldwide, but you know, in this country particularly, I think, you know, is having 2 years to get adjusted to the academic life. So talk to us about community college versus a 4-year college and the advantages of that.
Carol, that is an amazing question. You know, I'll first say this, you know, we still, as community college leaders, we still have the stigmatization of persons believing that the community college is the extension of high school. So that's number one. I believe that we continue to work to overcome that by the rich and robust programs that we offer, by the dynamic faculty that teach there, who have many of them the same credentials as faculty who are teaching at 4-year colleges and universities. But I look at the community college as thus. It is certainly a democracy's institution. You can come to the community college, and if your pathway is to go directly to a 4-year college or university, we provide that very rich experience. Academic rigor is there that prepares students to be successful when they transfer to a 4-year college or university, or we call them senior colleges in the City University of New York. But conversely, we are also preparing students for the workforce. So those workforce programs that many community colleges offer, such as nursing and dental technologies and so many more. And we also call those associate of applied science degrees that will prepare people to get directly to work. So I see that we are really, you know, the best of both worlds. If you desire to move on to a 4-year college, wonderful, that's great. We'll prepare you to do that as well. But if you certainly want to come and you can't afford oftentimes to be in class for 4 years before you're making a family sustaining wage, that is also the role of the community college. And I oftentimes think of the Truman Report that really talked about the role of the community college to really help the worker to get on his or her feet or their feet to make sure that they're able to be civically engaged or make a valuable contribution to society.
Yeah, I've read in some reports that the 2-year degree adds about $6,000 to a high school graduate's income. I'm sure in some instances it could be much more than that now, especially if they're going into IT. But it is, you know, definitely an enhancement of just stopping school at the high school level.
No, absolutely. And, you know, you mentioned IT. And when we think about, you know, the rise of cybersecurity, we saw that, you know, recently, a couple of months ago, how many of our organizations, or one major organization in Texas, was crippled by this cyber attack. So we're now seeing more than ever the rise of the importance of IT programs, software programs, but we're beginning to also see the role of IT even in our health care programs. We have programs called health information technologies. So IT is one, but our health science fields as well. Guttman Community College currently does not offer health-based programs, but that's also an important discipline and important vocation that is also critical to our community colleges, because more oftentimes many of our students, if they know that they can come to a community college and in 2 years complete a nursing degree, if you will, or complete a dental assisting, dental technologies program, that they know that on the end of that journey, they have a family sustaining wage. To me, that is the power that as community colleges, we are able to leverage for many of those students wherein they may need the additional time between their matriculation from high school to a post-secondary education. And many of them may be working. They may be working adults. So oftentimes I see that community college has been a value add for many of those young adults, and also those adults who are returning to the community college for reskilling.
Right. So I understand that now the problem is not so much getting into college now, it's finishing college, and that only 6 in 10 finish the 4-year program. And it's still very difficult, even in the 2-year program, because the pressure, financial and otherwise, is so intense on anybody who wants to get an education as opposed to starting a job immediately.
That's a very good point as well. We look at affordability. Community college very affordable. As they are at CUNY, so are they around the nation. But one of the aspects that is important to note for Guttman Community College is that Guttman Community College has really good, I would say, graduation rates. We have consistently ranked 40 to 50% in terms of our students graduating in 3 years, which is it's an amazing statistic. And we attribute that to our model. Our students arrive to our college and they go through a full-time status the very first year, which contributes to them completing on time. But we embed the wraparound services such as peer mentors. We work closely with them in terms of intrusive advising. They're working with their career, we call them SSAs, or career service advocates. And we also have our SSAs, which is student success advocates. So that complement of, I would say, services that we provide to students has certainly attributed to, over the years, our students completing in 2 to 3 years more quickly, I would argue, than community college nationally. And it is preparing them to transition to those senior colleges in CUNY so that they're not losing time. Because prior to a college like Guttman, you would have students who would enroll in a community college, take a number of developmental education courses, and by the time it was for them to move into the actual programs of study, they had exhausted financial aid. So a model like Guttman has really been the answer to, this is what can be done in order to help students to complete and transfer in record time.
Well, I think that community colleges are part of the topical conversation now because of the President Biden's Build Back Better plan. Every single day I hear somebody say free community college. So talk to us a little bit. And I know that the plan for that is also to work on retention and to work on the additional financial aid that students may need. It's one thing to pay for the tuition, but if you don't have housing, it's a bit, it's still hard to go to college.
I would say that the community colleges are now receiving the well-deserved credit. For many years, we have been the producers of many of the students who are moving directly into those skill-based programs, our nurses, our CNAs, our dental technologists, our linemen, our electricians, HVAC. Most of those jobs, those students have earned those credentials at the community college. So certainly this is a great time. The data supports that students who enroll in the community college are more than likely to make family sustaining wages, but we do still have, that I would say the students are not in dorms. You know, there are some community colleges that have residential life or residential facilities for students. But, you know, as a community college, I still believe that, you know, colleges like Guttman are critical because students, they know what they are, quote unquote, signing up for, because we have a very, very in-depth process by which a student who, before they commit to Guttman Community College, they go through a process of meeting with our advisors, meeting with faculty in some regards, so they can get a full overview of what does it mean to be a Guttman Community College student, or a Grizzly, as we like to call our students. We're the Grizzly Bears. So we believe in, we pride ourselves off of making sure that our students are ready, that they are equipped, and they really understand what it means to be intending a post-secondary education with the rigor that is high, but with a model that will ensure their success. The Bridge program has really been one of the markers of success for many of our students. After they have gone through the admissions process, new student orientation, they are then required, all students are required to go through the Bridge program. And that Bridge program really acclimates the student to Guttman Community College. It introduces them to the various departments that they will engage with during their matriculation at the institution. But I believe it is one that, this program is one that truly provides the wealth of resources that students will need to ensure their success. Because I believe that if we did not have a program like a Bridge program, that transition from high school directly into college, many students would be lost. So that Bridge program is just that. You know, it is bridging the gap of knowledge, bridging that anxiety that they may have, so that they can truly feel comfortable with being a student at Guttman Community College.
So talk to us a little bit about the background that you bring to Guttman. You were president of Phoenix Community College, the first Black president in a 100-year-old school, and graduated from a Black college. Talk to us a little bit about, you clearly have gotten your doctorate and are a tremendous success. And I think that your students will see you and will think that, you know, that this is a big incentive to them to stay in school and to succeed as you have.
You know, so 20 years in higher education, primarily working in the community college. And I will say I intentionally chose to work at the community college. I come from a very small town called Belgrade, Florida, where there are about maybe 15,000 people there. Most of the population there represents about 60% Black and about 40% Mexican American. So the populations that I have served in my last almost 20 years have been primarily Hispanic serving and minority serving institutions. And I bring with me that same level of struggle in some regard, those same barriers that students may have experienced. You know, I grew up in a single parent household. I saw my mother struggle to take care of 3 kids. So that story oftentimes resonates with some of our students, because some of our students do come from single parent households. Some of our students do come from communities of color where, you know, they are under resourced, and those are underserved communities. And so I really represent a student that attends Guttman Community College. Not all students, because we do have students who come to us who have mom and dad in the household, and there may be other barriers that they struggle with. But when you look at most data, most of the students that arrive to community colleges represent, you know, my story. You know, Black and brown males come from communities where there may have been some violence, and they've had to overcome that and still be successful, look to mentors, which I did along the way, to pour into me, to say that, you know, you're smart, you're intelligent, you can do the job, you can do the work. And I would say one of the things that I won't say that I've struggled with, but it's always been, you know, something that I'm reminded of, I was reminded of, oh my God, you were so young to be a president. And I say to people all the time that, yeah, I may have been young ascending to a certain role, but I'm certainly qualified to be in the role because of the wealth of knowledge that I've gained from other presidents and chancellors and leaders, and because I understand the condition of the student. And I believe bringing that unique perspective of education paired with empathy, because, you know, losing a mother at a young age, I have to grow up quickly and take care of a brother and a sister. It really taught me, and it challenged me to grow up quickly, but it helped me to really understand when the student that came to my classroom late because he or she or they were taking care of siblings, I understood that. And I was able to advocate for those students differently than if that was not my experience. Or what if a student said I was a single mom and I don't have the resources such as childcare, and I may be late because I need to take care of my child. I understood that, and I still understand. So, aside from the educational attainment, to me, for me, it's been really understanding the student because I grew up in settings similar to our students, and I'm able to relate to them in many respects. And I believe once they learn that story and they hear that, it causes them to say, "Yeah, I can be successful if." This president, this young man, as many of them will call me, if he can do that, certainly I can too.
So one of the things that educators are faced with these days is critical race theory, which literally has nothing to do with kindergarten or even college. It's a law concept, as I'm sure you know, that just tried to explain that perhaps legal structures that we have reinforce white supremacy as opposed to deconstructing it. But and I listened to a conference call where teachers who were in elementary school and also on the college level trying to figure out how to teach the history of America with this new wave of not wanting to tell the quote bad parts about it. What are your thoughts about that movement?
The excellent, and I would say the most critical part of being an educator is that we have the responsibility to educate. And we must do so without biases. In academia, that's why we have academic freedom in higher education, where our faculty are able to truly discuss topics and able to really lead those discussions in a way where there's discourse that will hear all aspects and all voices and invite all voices and representations to the table. But anytime where you have a politicization of, messages, you will find that persons will be on different sides of the narrative, if you will. But I am a firm believer is that history is history, and we have to present history as it happened, as it is, in its realities, and then we allow people to make their own, come up with their own conclusions about it, but present the history and the narrative as it happens, as it relates to the persons and the communities and the groups that were marginalized. And you oftentimes find, even in doing so, the narrative will still be, well, that didn't happen, or that couldn't have happened. We're not that type of people. But I believe as consistently as we can as educators, really share the history that is in the textbooks, and that is those that's not in the textbook. Rely on, I believe, strongly in the oral tradition, because that is so important. From the even when you think of the African diaspora, how did we share most of our stories? Big Mama shared recipes not because she wrote them down, but she passed them down to family members, and really relying on all of those traditions to tell the story and hold ourselves and others accountable to that narrative is one of the ways, I would say it's one primary way in which we can really continue to rebut many of the narratives out there that try to counter, as you mentioned, much of critical race theory. It's just really telling the story and telling it as it is and in its truth. And you really just allow it and be unabashed about it. We oftentimes have persons who will kind of dance around topics of controversy. But the beauty of being in higher education is that you can approach those, and you should be able to approach those conversations by using the text to really support the narrative, but also being able to ask the opinions of others, and not that you will believe everything that someone shares with you about a topic, but at least you can respect their voice, and you can respect their notion about these different topics, though controversial or not.
Right. So banning a book about Rosa Parks for kindergarten, is one thing that's being faced. But I think, I'm so struck by the skills that you are giving your students. A quick question though about higher education and how it's changing. There are some who say that it's changing dramatically and suddenly, and there are other academics who believe although this is going to be a very slow, incremental shift to the workforce demands. And I have read that you are very much keyed into what the workforce demands are for your students, where they can actually find employment and have sustainable lives.
You know, working at a community college for most of my career, I have been very in tune with workforce development. I love the arts and the sciences, and you know, my last college we had a beautiful facility for theater and art. But it was also important to me that my students who were Black and brown, that when they came to the institution, but most importantly, when they left, that they were equipped with the skills so that they can go out and get jobs. So it was important to me at that time and now is that we engage in with intentionality with our workforce partners. We need to know which jobs are they forecasting in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then as higher education, how can we invite them to the table and not just create curriculum with the thought that if we build it, they will come. I think those times are gone. And what is critical now is that we're engaging with workforce partners to truly understand what are those jobs and what is the curriculum that we have that we may need to pivot, if you will, in terms of making sure that the students have the skill set that they need to be successful. So I believe that we are always seeing that, or I would say that has always been the goal of the community college. And I believe that that will begin to really resonate with four-year colleges around the nation as well. But with the community college, that's what we're beginning to think about even at Guttman. You know, are we preparing students for those careers of tomorrow? And if not, which partners, which IT consultants or companies or small, large, you know, businesses do we need to engage with in the city to really learn about what are the requirements for the jobs where it's hardest to fill, and how can Guttman Community College be at the table with them to help to meet some of those employment goals. And I believe that the community colleges are really poised, and I'm not speaking for all, just for really for Guttman. Guttman Community College is certainly poised to do that work because we're still a nimble, small, but powerful and nimble organization that we're looking for those opportunities to truly partner with not only our businesses, but our community-based organizations as well, because there are a number of individuals who are served by those CBOs, such as our disconnected youth 16 to 24, and our adult students who are looking to be reskilled or looking for skills, and which micro credentials or which certificates could we as Guttman Community College build with the employer, but make sure that not only are we building them, but the employer will work with us to ensure that they're able to interview our students at the end, because it's not enough to just build a curriculum with the employer, but the employer has to be invested in interviewing students and providing them those job opportunities.
A quick question about your commitment to women in the STEM field. So, you know, the IT classes that you teach. You seem to have a lot of male students who are interested in that. You know, what's your commitment to women in IT?
Yeah, that is a great question. Totally committed to ensuring that our women are present. Not only that they're present, but they're providing opportunities and awareness. It's really about awareness. Oftentimes, students don't feel as if they can be successful or to see themselves in a role because we don't present the narrative. We don't present the town halls or the lectures or bring in persons who look like them doing those positions so that they can see themselves in that role. So I am certainly committed to ensuring that our women have the same opportunities as those of men, because we do know that there are positions like IT or roles like IT and other occupations that are male dominated. Oftentimes it's the gap in the knowledge and the awareness. And it begins with the middle schools. It begins with the high schools. Oftentimes we engage with students at the high school level for pre-college programs, also sometimes called early college. But I argued with a colleague in a very gentle way many years ago is that why aren't we reaching back to our middle schoolers to have camps for women, our young ladies, you know, have coding camps.
I
That
love
is,
that idea.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
where that's where you start.
right. We're unfortunately running out of time. I hope you will come back, but I did want to ask, I hear you've got a great motto. You know, tell us a little bit about your motto and, you know, to take us into the future with that.
My motto If you're talking about the best is yet to come,
Right.
for me, that has been, it speaks to me on so many different levels. I'd like to look at things as if, they may be gloomy in some regards. Some may perceive it as, okay, it's not going to happen. We're stagnant, we haven't grown. But I believe that, I'm more of a spiritual guy, if you will, if I can say that, since this is Black TV. I grew up in an apostolic church. So I always had that part about me that I always believed by faith that things can happen. So when I say the best is yet to come, in my mind, I'm already putting out in the atmosphere that the best is already here. We just have to prepare our mind and we have to work up to getting to that finality. So that's what it means for me. The best is yet to come. Is to not look at an issue as it is now, but to be able to see the rosy part of that, the beautiful part of all of those great ideas and that cohesion coming together. And then you're at that best.
Well, Dr. Larry Johnson, president of Guttman Community College, thanks so much for spending time with us. Your students are so lucky to have you, and so are we. Thank you for joining Black America. And to our audience out there as well, thank you for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America, and we will see you the next time.